So for now, the deadlock between the government and the NLC continues. Our rights analyst, Dr. Sam Amadi, joins us now for more. Dr. Sam, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you.
It's barely 1 week that the new president assumed office. And now this debacle, this pendulum between the federal government, his new administration, Tinubu's administration, and the NLC. So what's in it for the NLC in this battle? Because when you look at it, the Bayelsa state is being advised to engage the federal government in a dialogue. Plateau State say, no, we're going ahead. So what's in it? Is it a house divided against itself?
Not really a house divided against itself. I mean, there's the history of NLC and the history of labor union struggle has been that of maybe some government will not keep quiet. You know, there are going to be engagements and also effort to undermine workers' solidarity. But the key point here is that there seems to be significant unanimity among the unions and their affiliates to go on, and that's probably why the government is taking this strike seriously. But beyond that is the question of what is the issue? What are the issues here? There's some consensus, what I call incompletely theorized consensus. That we should take away subsidies. So you hear it everywhere. I mean, the figures tell the story. If you're talking about maybe 10 trillion at some count, if you're talking about maybe you in a fiscal crisis where you're using up to 78% of revenue to service debt, and some part of that debt probably incurred to pay for the subsidy. Now, the question around efficiency, that you need free market, flexible market pricing, free market, and the assumption here is that's the best way to use resources. So people, two things it does for you. It reduces public sector borrowing requirement. Government doesn't need to put in money paying for the subsidy, which consumers can pay. And the argument here is, look, if you look at how much we smuggle out of our border, because the price differential between Nigeria and those bordering countries are huge, and therefore incentive to smuggle across the board. So instead of looking at technology, looking at putting soldiers on use pricing to make it no longer attractive. Good idea. Now, if you look at the fact that they also agree that about 40% of the consumption of fuel goes to rich people who can afford to pay market price. So these are efficiency argument. But look, the state has 3 roles to play. One is allocative role, to allocate resources efficiently. Second is stabilizing. That's why I have the macroeconomic fundamentals, the central bank, talking about full employment and all that, interest rate management. The third is distributive. So the question here for labor actually is, look, 2 balance sheet, government balance sheet is red, we know, bankrupt. So you need to plug it that hole, okay? Consumer citizens balance sheet. So if you look at, for example, labor, this is a country where, and these are equity issues we must bring up. And people say, okay, let's deal with economics. No, economics has to also be socially sensitive.
Right.
In Nigeria, the annual salary of a senator is $2.1 million, okay, which comes to around 345 million. The annual salary of a minimum wage earner in Nigeria is less than 400,000 naira. So that's why Nigeria is not just one of the poorest countries. It has the largest Gini coefficient inequality in the world, one of the largest. And so a country that has that kind of minimum wage, the lowest in the world, Chad is about 92, Chad is about 117 dollars. Okay. And we are just with official market, maybe 60-something dollars. So the point is here, the fight between the labor and the federal government, none of them are stupid. Federal government is looking at efficiency. Labor is looking at equity. How do you expect something on those?
So how do both sides meet halfway then? But
Absolutely.
Then again, why do we always find ourselves here?
Good question.
What exactly are the fundamental issues here?
Now, this is where it's tricky. You know, people talk about the gains of these savings. Okay, we'll plug it back to infrastructure. But you look at the Nigerian performance of Nigerian states over the decades, you don't have trust in the short to medium term or even the long term that these gains will come. Okay, first, why we have this problem? If we are refining our crude, if you look at all the OPEC countries, really, most of them, their petrol prices are almost like giveaway. because the cost is low. You know, it's a natural endowment. They probably exploit themselves, okay? They refine it at home, where there's good roads, electricity, so the cost of refining will be low. Now, even if Dangote comes on board, Dangote said it's going to sell at, of course, market price, global price. The inefficiencies in the system, road transport, failure everywhere. So what makes it damning is that, look, we could have avoided all this. Again, if by 2011, 2012, when Jonathan, you know, did that, first did it, we had done a phased removal
of subsidy.
By now, even the different accounting, the deficit we run, the payments we made would have been less. And by now, that's what we call in regulation everywhere in the world. It's called rate shock. Rate shock means even if the real economic price is X, let's say 500 naira, if you move somebody from 200 to 500, it's a rate shock. It's devastating. The logic might be correct. This is the efficient pricing, but the impact is devastating. So that's why you have to kind of cushion them. You know, you move them up. They get used to it. They develop mitigating strategies. Then they cope with fuller exposure. So if we had done this long ago, by now we would have got.
The question is now
efficient.
How,
so people say do it now. Yes, but the consequences that people are going to have, and what.
How do you even cushion those effects? Because we keep hearing about palliatives.
Absolutely.
It will still cost government some kind
money.
of funding. Where do you get that funding from? But before I let you answer that very quickly, I mean, there's a new development. Of course, the meeting between the NEC, that's the National Executive Council of the Labour Union, has been called off temporarily. Of course, like we reported earlier, the court has quashed any attempt by the NLC and the TUC have restrained them for now. Yep. But Ajero, the leader of the NLC, is saying that he's not even aware of that. But of course, further consultations, will go on. Yes.
So the point I'm making is this: he said, what are the mitigations? First, the board administration talk about 5,000 naira for 40 million households. Okay, this is a joke. Basically, you're going to feed another round of beer and pepper soup, and that ends it. Now, the economics of cash transfer is that they must be consistent. They also have to be targeted and shored up with other interventions. So if you give somebody 5,000 to cushion the impact, a joke. Now, oftentimes we talk about infrastructure upgrade, and this is the problem. Two problems. One is that the level of conventional efficiency of resources to infrastructure is very poor in Nigeria.
Right.
So if you budget $100 million, 100 million, okay, you'll be sure that less than 30% of that, or 40, actually gets to that project. So the expectation that this is a windfall, we get this 10 billion in a year, trillion in a year, for example, and suddenly we fix infrastructure, may not come to pass. The second is that the time lag for infrastructure investment to begin to make impact in the life of people, it's a time lag. So if you build roads now, before they start to return in terms of cheaper transport fare, in terms of improvement in reducing inflation, food inflation, there'll be a time lag. So the question then is, what can you do? Now, Labour is canvassing, or some TUC have said,
return to status quo. And
first, status quo, which looks
is that even
pretty
realistic?
difficult.
Okay.
But then minimum wage. See, the minimum wage theory, states can't even deal with 30% of the minimum wage. Now, if you get to 120, 100,000, how many states can even do that? So primarily, the concern here is, for some time, the poor will carry, as usual, the purse. And this is a lesson for Nigeria. We need to be restructuring this country. We need to make sure that we are more efficient in the way we deliver service, so that we don't have a cost to have this kind of subsidies. And when we do have them, they will be efficiently run. And at the same time, when we remove them, the people will not suffer much. So at this point now, I don't see any mitigation that will not expose the poor, those who are in the informal sector, those who are working, small medium enterprises, to very serious economic and social consequences. And it feeds back into a constrained growth, because essentially, underconsumption, poverty would also affect growth potential.
Okay, then that's a good place to drop it. Well, we just hope that the new president will be able to use his experience as governor of Lagos, the largest economy in Nigeria, from 1999 to 2007, when he transformed the state civil service, to fix this.
Absolutely. Dr. Sam Amadi, a Rise analyst, thank you so much.